Telvos had never known fear. His species, the Valorians, did not feel it. They were born on a world without predators, without danger. When a Valorian saw something that could kill them, their minds simply calculated the odds. If the odds were bad, they retreated. If the odds were good, they attacked. There was no racing heart, no cold sweat, no shaking hands. Just numbers. Just logic. This was why Telvos found humans so strange. He stood in the briefing room of Horizon's Edge, a military station floating above a gray moon called Belreth 7. Around him sat 12 soldiers. 4 were Valorian like himself, tall and thin with hard shells covering their bodies. The other 8 were human. Telvos watched them carefully. The humans talked too much. They laughed at things that were not funny. They touched each other on the shoulders and backs for no reason. One of them, a large male named Beak Sunho, was telling a story about food. The others were laughing. Telvos did not understand what was amusing about meat cooked over fire. "You look confused," said a voice beside him. Telvos turned. A human male stood there. He was average height with short black hair and old scars on his hands. His name tag read, Kim Do-yeon, Sergeant. "I am not confused," Telvos said. "I am observing. Same thing sometimes." Kim Do-yeon smiled. It was a small smile, not like the big loud ones the other humans made. "First time working with humans?" "Yes, we're not so bad. Give us a chance." Telvos did not respond. He did not need to give anyone a chance. He needed to complete his mission and return to his ship. This joint operation between Valorians and humans was a political decision, not a tactical one. The alliance was new. Both species wanted to show they could work together against the Hollow. The Hollow. Even the name made other species nervous. Telvos simply processed the information he had. The Hollow were a hive species. They moved from system to system, eating everything alive. They had destroyed over 40 civilizations in the past 1,000 years. They could not be reasoned with. They could not be stopped with words. They could only be killed. Commander Rethka entered the room. He was Valorian, old and respected. His shell faded to pale gray. Everyone became quiet. "The mission is simple," Rethka said. Belreth 7 had a Mayan colony. Population of 6,000. 3 weeks ago, all contact was lost. We believe the Hollow have arrived. Your squad will go down, gather information, and return. Do not engage unless necessary. Understood? Understood, everyone said. Telvos looked at the humans again. They were checking their weapons, tightening their armor, making small jokes to each other. A female human named Park Yuna was packing medical supplies into a bag. She was small, smaller than most humans, but her hands moved with speed and skill. Another female, Lee Jie, sat alone cleaning a long rifle. She did not talk to anyone. She just watched. Telvos respected that the squad boarded a dropship and flew down to the moon. The colony was dark. No lights, no signals, no movement. They landed on a platform covered in dust and walked toward the main entrance. "Stay sharp," Kim Do-yeon said quietly. Telvos found the warning unnecessary. He was always sharp. His senses were better than human senses. He could see in low light. He could hear sounds humans could not hear. He could smell chemicals in the air. Right now, he smelled something wrong. Something dead. They entered the colony. The halls were empty. Equipment was left where people had dropped it. Food was rotting on tables. But there were no bodies. No blood. No signs of fighting. Where is everyone? Beak Sunho whispered. "Taken," Lee Jie said. It was the first time Telvos heard her speak. Her voice was flat and cold. Park. Yuna moved closer to Kim Do-yeon. If the Hollow took them, they could still be alive. The Hollow keep hosts alive for a long time. Then we need to move faster, Kim said. They went deeper into the colony. The lights began to flicker. The air became thick and warm. Talvos noticed the walls were changing. They were covered in something dark and wet. Organic material. The Hollow built their nest from living tissue. We should leave, one of the Lorian soldiers said. The infestation is too advanced. We cannot get useful data here. We haven't found the nest yet, Kim Do-yeon said. We need to know how many there are. The risk is too high. The information is worth the risk. Talvos watched this exchange with interest. The Valorian was correct. The logical choice was to retreat and return with a larger force. But Kim Do-yeon did not seem to care about logic. He cared about something else. They kept moving. Then the lights went out completely. Talvos switched to his low-light vision. He could see the others standing frozen in the darkness. The humans could not see. They were helpless. Nobody move, Kim Do-yeon said. Use your helmet lights. Small beams of light appeared as the humans turned on their equipment. The beams were weak, barely cutting through the darkness. Then Talvos heard something. A wet sound. A clicking sound. Coming from inside the walls. Park Yuna heard it too. She grabbed Kim Do-yeon's arm and whispered, "They're already inside the walls." Talvos looked at the wall beside him. It was moving, breathing. Something was pushing against it from the other side. Many somethings. His mind began to calculate. 12 soldiers. Unknown number of enemies. Limited ammunition. No clear exit path. Survival probability. Low. But when he looked at the humans, they were not calculating. They were raising their weapons. They were standing together, shoulder to shoulder. They were not running. For the first time in his life, Talvos did not understand what he was seeing. And somewhere deep in his chest, something stirred. Something that felt like a question with no answer. The wall exploded. Dark shapes poured out like water breaking through a dam. Talvos saw them clearly with his Valorian eyes. Hollow soldiers. They were the size of large dogs, moving on 6 legs, their bodies covered in black shells and wet flesh. Their mouths were full of teeth that never stopped moving. Contact. Kim Do-yeon shouted. Open fire! The humans did not hesitate. Gunfire filled the tunnel with light and noise. Talvos raised his own weapon and began shooting. His aim was perfect. Every shot hit its target. But there were too many. For every hollow that fell, 3 more came through the holes in the walls. Baek Sun-ho stepped forward with his heavy weapon. Fire burst from the barrel, burning a path through the swarm. He was laughing. Actually laughing. "Come on!" he screamed. "Is that all you have?" Talvos calculated again. 12 soldiers. Over 100 enemies visible. More coming. Survival probability, 12.4%. Survival probability is 12.4%, he announced. Nobody asked. Park Yuna shouted back. She was firing her pistol with one hand while dragging a wounded Valorian soldier with the other. The squad began moving. Kim Do-yeon led them through the tunnels, always choosing paths that gave them room to fight. He moved like he had done this 1,000 times. Maybe he had. Humans were always at war with something. They reached a large room, some kind of storage area. Kim ordered everyone to take cover behind the metal containers. The Hollow followed them in, crawling across the floor and walls and ceiling. "We need to hold here," Kim said. "GA, find a high position. Sun-ho, cover the left entrance. Yuna, take care of the wounded. Everyone else, spread out." Talvos watched the humans follow orders instantly. There was no argument, no calculation, no discussion of odds. They simply moved. Li Jie climbed to the top of a container stack and began firing her rifle. Each shot killed one hollow. She did not miss. She did not rush. She was like a machine made of ice. The fighting lasted for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes. When it stopped, the floor was covered in hollow bodies. The air smelled like burning meat and chemicals. 3 soldiers were wounded. 2 Valorians and 1 human. Park Yuna was already working on them, her small hands covered in blood. Beak Sunho sat down heavily against the container. There was a deep cut on his arm, bleeding badly. But he was still smiling. Not bad for the first round, he said. TAEL single quotes Vus approached him. You are injured. You should let the medic treat you. Yuna's busy with worse cases. I can wait. That is not logical. Your wound could become infected. Your combat effectiveness will decrease. Sunho looked at him with an expression Telvos could not read. The others need help more than me. That's all. But your survival isn't the only thing that matters. Telvos did not know how to respond to this. In Valorian society, every individual was valuable. But they were valuable like resources were valuable. You protected yourself because you were useful. You did not sacrifice your own health for others unless the math supported it. The math did not support what Sunho was doing. Kim Do-yoon walked over. He looked tired. There was hollow blood on his face. How are we doing? 3 wounded, Telvos reported. Ammunition is at 60%. We have lost contact with the surface. Can we still complete the mission? The probability of success is very low. Kim nodded slowly. Then we push forward. That is not the logical choice. Maybe not? Kim looked toward the far tunnel, the one that led deeper into the colony. But those things took 6,000 people. Families, children. If we leave now, we learn nothing. More colonies die. I won't accept that. One of the Valorian soldiers stepped forward. His name was Kethral. He was young and his shell was still bright green. Sergeant Kim, I must protest. We should retreat and report. This is not a fight we can win. You're right, Kim said. We probably can't win, but we can hurt them. We can find their nest and learn how they work. We can make sure the next squad that comes here knows what to expect. You would die for information? I would die so others don't have to. Kethral fell silent. Telvos saw confusion in his posture. He felt the same confusion himself. Park Yuna finished treating the wounded and stood up. Her uniform was dark with blood. Everyone who can walk will walk. Everyone who can fight will fight. That's how it works. That is how humans work, Telvos said quietly. Yuna looked at him. Her eyes were hard, but not unkind. Yeah, I guess it is. They moved again, deeper into the colony. The tunnels became narrower. The organic material on the walls became thicker. They were getting close to something. Then they found the first. New one. It was different from the others. Bigger. Much bigger. It stood on 2 legs like a human, but it was 3 meters tall. Its body was covered in thick armor. Its arms ended in blades instead of hands. And its eyes, so many eyes, looked at them with something that might have been intelligence. What is that? Sunho whispered. Evolution, Kim Do-hyun said. They're adapting. The creature attacked. It moved faster than anything that Sai should move. It crossed the distance to the squad in less than a second. 1 Valorian soldier was too slow. The creature's blade went through his chest. Everyone opened fire. The creature's armor held. It turned and swung at another soldier. Lee Ji-hee's rifle cracked. The shot hit the creature's eye. It screamed, a sound like metal tearing, and stumbled. Kim Do-yoon ran forward. He pulled something from his belt. A grenade. He shoved it into the wound Ji-hee had made and threw himself backward. The explosion tore the creature apart. Silence. Then breathing. Heavy, tired breathing. Kim stood up slowly. He was covered in the creature's blood. His hands were shaking. "They're learning," he said. "They're building better soldiers." Teal'c stared at him. The sergeant's hands were shaking, but his voice was steady. He had just done something impossible. He had run toward death, not away from it. Why? Teal'c asked before he could stop himself. "Why did you do that?" Kim looked at him. For a moment, something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Or the beginning of it. "Because it needed to be done," Kim said. "And I could do it." "That's enough." They kept moving toward the nest. And Teal'c kept watching the humans, trying to understand something his calculations could not explain. They lost 2 more soldiers before reaching the deep tunnels. Both were Valorians. They died quickly, taken by hollow swarms that burst from hidden holes. Teal'c processed each death as he was trained to do. A resource lost. A decrease in combat strength. The odds getting worse. But something else was happening inside him. Something his training had not prepared him for. He was starting to recognize the humans. Not just as soldiers, but as individuals. He knew that Beak Sunho always hummed a strange tune when he reloaded his weapon. He knew that Li Jihei touched her rifle like it was a living thing, gentle and careful. He knew that Park Yuna talked to the wounded while she worked on them, telling them stories about her home, about food she missed, about rain falling on city streets. And he knew that Kim Do-yoon always walked at the front. Always. Even when he was tired. Even when he was hurt. He put himself between danger and his people, like a wall made of flesh and will. The deep tunnels were different from the rest of the colony. The walls were completely covered in organic material now. The floor was soft and warm. It felt like walking inside a living creature. The smell was terrible, thick and sweet like rotting fruit. "We're close," Kim said. "Stay tight. Watch each other." They entered a large chamber. The ceiling was so high it disappeared into darkness. Structures rose from the floor like twisted trees. And hanging from those structures were pods. Thousands of pods. Inside each pod, Teal'c could see shapes. Human shapes. The colonists. They were still alive, connected to the hollow nest by tubes and wires of flesh. "Oh God," Park Yuna whispered. "Can we save them?" Sunho asked. Kim studied the pods. His face was very still. "Maybe some. We need to find the queen first. Kill the queen, and the nest dies." They moved through the chamber. The pods pulsed around them. Some of the humans inside were moving, dreaming nightmares they would never wake from. Teal'c tried not to look at them. He was not sure why. Then the attack came. It was not like the others. This time, the hollow were organized. They came from all directions at once, surrounding the squad. The new evolved ones led the charge. 3 of them. 4. 5. "Circle up," Kim shouted. The squad formed a ring, backs to each other. They fired in all directions. Bodies fell, but more came. Always more. One of the evolved hollow broke through. Its blade arm swung toward Li Jihei. She rolled away, but not fast enough. The blade cut across her back. She fell. "Jihei!" Sunho screamed. He rushed to her, firing his weapon wildly. Teal'c kept shooting. His calculations were running constantly now. Ammunition at 30%. 8 soldiers still standing. Enemy numbers still unknown. Survival probability dropping every second. Then he heard Yuna scream. He turned. One of the small hollow had grabbed her leg. It was dragging her toward a hole in the floor. She was clawing at the ground, trying to stop herself, but it was too strong. "Yuna!" Kim Do-yoon did not hesitate. He did not calculate. He simply ran. He dove after her, grabbing her hand just as she was pulled into the darkness. For a moment, they both hung there, Yuna half in the hole and Kim holding her arm with both hands. Then more hollow came from below. They grabbed Kim. They started pulling both of them down. Kim looked back at the squad. At Telvos. "Keep fighting. Don't stop." And then he was gone. Pulled into the darkness with YUN@TAEL. Single quotes V stood frozen. Something was wrong. Something was happening to his body. His chest felt tight. His vision was narrowing. His hands were shaking. His thoughts were scattered and broken, jumping from one thing to another without logic or reason. He was thinking about Kim Do-yeon, about the way he smiled, about the way he said, "Give us a chance," about the way he always walked at the front. He was thinking about Park Yuna, about her small hands covered in blood, about the stories she told the wounded, about how she called everyone friend, even when they had just met. He was thinking about losing them, about never seeing them again, about a universe where their voices were silent forever. And suddenly, Telvos understood that this was fear, not the fear of death. Death was just an end, a final calculation. No, this was something worse. This was the fear of losing something that mattered, someone that mattered. For his entire life, Telvos had believed that caring was a weakness, that attachment was inefficiency. But now, standing in this nightmare chamber surrounded by monsters, he realized the truth. Caring was why the humans were so strong. They fought not for themselves, but for each other. And that made them fight harder than any calculation could explain. Telvos made a choice. It was not logical. It was not calculated. It was simply what he needed to do. He ran toward the hole. "Where are you going?" Sunho shouted. "To get them back." He jumped into the darkness. The tunnel was narrow and wet. He could hear fighting below. Human voices. Hollow screams. He followed the sounds, moving faster than he had ever moved before. He found them in a small chamber. Kim was on the ground, bleeding from a dozen wounds. Yuna was pressed against the wall, firing her pistol at shapes in the darkness. 3 evolved hollow were closing in. Telvos did not think. He attacked. His first shots took one hollow in the head. It fell. The second one turned toward him. He dodged its blade and fired into its chest until it stopped moving. The third one was on Kim, raising its arm for a killing blow. Telvos threw himself at it. He was not strong like a human. His body was thin and light. But he had surprise. He landed on the creature's back and shoved his weapon into its eye. He fired until his weapon overheated and died in his hands. The hollow collapsed. Silence. TAEL single quotes Fuss fell to the floor, breathing hard. His whole body was shaking. He had never done anything like that before. He had never been so terrified in his life. Kim Do-yeon looked at him. Despite everything, despite the blood and pain and darkness, the human was smiling. "You came," Kim said. TAEL single quotes Fuss did not know what to say. He had not calculated. He had not planned. He had simply moved. "Yes," he finally said. "I came." Park Yuna helped Kim stand. She was crying, but she was also smiling. "Thank you," she said to Telvos. "Thank you." From above, they heard Sunho's voice. "Are you alive down there?" "Alive," Kim shouted back. "Coming up." They climbed out of the hole. The battle in the chamber was over. The squad had won, but barely. Lee Yuhye was sitting against the wall, her wound wrapped in bloody bandages. Sunho was reloading his weapon with trembling hands, but they were alive. All of them, because they had fought for each other. Kim Do-yeon put his hand on Telvos' shoulder. It was a human gesture, a gesture of friendship. "The nest is close," Kim said. "We finish this together." Talvos nodded. He was still shaking. He was still afraid, but he was no longer alone. The nest core was unlike anything Talvos had ever seen. It was a massive chamber, larger than any building, filled with organic structures that pulsed and breathed like a giant heart. The walls were made of flesh and bone, taken from thousands of consumed creatures. The floor was soft and warm, covered in a network of veins carrying dark fluid, and at the center of it all was the queen dot. She was enormous. Her body filled most of the chamber, a mountain of twisted flesh and armor plates. Dozens of limbs extended from her form, some ending in claws, others in mouths, others in strange organs that Talvos could not identify. Her head was small compared to her body, almost human-shaped, with eyes that burned with ancient intelligence. The squad stopped at the entrance. Even Big Sunho was silent. "That's big," Lee Jie said quietly. "Can we kill it?" Yuna asked. Kim Do-hyun studied the queen. His face was calm, but Talvos could see his hands tightening on his weapon. "We have to try." Then the queen spoke. Her voice came from everywhere at once, from the walls and floor and ceiling. It was not one voice, but thousands, layered on top of each other. The voices of every creature she had consumed. "So small," the queen said. "So fragile. Why do you come here to die?" Kim stepped forward. "We come here to stop you." "Stop me?" The queen laughed. It was a terrible sound. "I have consumed 40 civilizations. I have eaten gods and kings and warriors without number. You are nothing. Insects. Less than insects." "Maybe," Kim said, "but insects can sting." The queen's many eyes turned to Talvos. He felt her gaze like a weight on his chest. "Ah," she said. "A Valorian. Your kind I understand. You think in numbers, in logic, in cold calculation. You know you cannot win this fight. Your own mind tells you to run." Talvos said nothing. "Tell me, Valorian, why you stand with these humans? They are chaos, emotion, noise. They break every rule of survival. They die for each other when dying changes nothing. They fight when fighting is pointless. They are the most illogical species I have ever encountered." Talvos looked at his squad. At Kim Do-hyun, standing at the front despite his wounds. At Park Yuna, holding her medical bag like a weapon. At Lee Jie, already raising her rifle, calculating angles. At Big Sunho, grinning like this was exactly where he wanted to be. "Yes," Talvos said. "They are illogical. Then why?" Talvos thought about the past hours. About Kim running into darkness to save Yuna. About Sunho taking wounds for strangers. About Jihee's silent protection. About Yuna's steady hands and kind words. "Because they do not fight to survive," Talvos said. "They fight so others can. And that makes them stronger than any calculation can measure." The queen was silent for a long moment. Then she laughed again, louder this time. "Foolish. Weakness dressed as strength. Love and loyalty are chains that hold you back. I will show you the truth. I will consume you all, and you will understand." The battle began. The queen's limbs attacked from all directions. Claws and tentacles and mouths came at the squad like a storm. They scattered, each soldier finding their own position. Sunho opened fire with his heavy weapon. The flames washed over the queen's body, but did not seem to hurt her. Her armor was too thick. "Aim for the joints," Kim shouted. "Where the armor connects." Jihee's rifle cracked. Her shot hit a joint where two armor plates met. Dark blood sprayed out. The queen screamed. More shots. More wounds. But the queen was healing almost as fast as they could hurt her. Talvos fired his weapon until it ran empty. He grabbed the rifle from a dead soldier and kept firing. His mind was racing, trying to find a weakness, trying to calculate a path to victory. Then he saw it. Behind the queen, partially hidden by her massive body, was a cluster of organs. They pulsed with light, connected to her head by thick cables of flesh. A brain. Or something like it. The back. Talvo shouted. Her brain is at the back. Kim heard him. Sunho Jie, keep her attention. Everyone else with me. They moved together. Kim led them around the queen's side, dodging her attacks, using the organic structures as cover. Yuna stayed close behind him, her pistol firing at anything that got too close. The queen noticed. She turned, trying to block them. Her limbs swept across the floor, throwing soldiers aside. Talvos was hit. A tentacle caught him across the chest and threw him against a wall. His vision went dark for a moment. When it cleared, he saw Kim still running forward. Alone, the sergeant reached the queen's back. He pulled out his last 2 grenades. He looked up at the pulsing brain organs so far above him, too far to throw. Talvos understood what Kim was going to do. No! He screamed, but Kim was already climbing. He was pulling himself up the queen's body, using her armor plates as handholds. The queen tried to shake him off, but he held on. His wounded body must have been screaming in pain, but he kept climbing. He reached the brain. He shoved both grenades into the soft flesh. Fire in the hole! He jumped. The explosion was blinding. Talvos covered his eyes. When he looked again, the queen was falling. Her great body collapsed like a mountain crumbling. Her scream shook the chamber. Her limbs thrashed wildly, destroying everything around her. Then she was still dead. Talvos ran to where Kim had fallen. He found the sergeant lying in a pool of his own blood. His body was broken, but he was breathing, barely. Kim. Yuna was there in seconds, her hands working frantically. Stay with me? Stay with me. Kim's eyes opened. They found Talvos. Did we get her? He whispered. Yes, Talvos said. You got her. Kim smiled. That same small smile from the first day. Good. Sunho and Jie arrived. Together, they lifted Kim and began moving toward the exit. The nest was dying around them. The organic walls were rotting, falling apart. They had to get out before everything collapsed. Talvos looked back at the queen's body one last time. She had consumed 40 civilizations. She had believed she was unstoppable. She had never met humans before. Now she had. And now she was dead, because one small, fragile, illogical creature had climbed her body with grenades in his hands and fire in his heart. Talvos turned and ran after his squad. His friends died, and for the first time in his life, he understood what it meant to hope. The nest was collapsing. Tunnels that had taken years to build were falling apart in seconds. The queen's death had broken something in the hollow hive mind. The creatures that had been so organized were now running wild, attacking anything and everything, including each other. The squad ran through the chaos. Sunho carried Kim on his back despite his own wounds. Jie led the way, her rifle clearing the path. Yuna ran beside Sunho, keeping pressure on Kim's worst wounds. Talvos stayed at the back, watching for threats. His weapon was almost empty. His body was exhausted. But he would not stop. Not until they were all safe. They reached the main tunnels. The ceiling was cracking. Pieces of rock and organic material were falling everywhere. One wrong step, and they would be buried forever. The extraction point is 200 meters ahead. Jie shouted. We won't make it in time. One of the Valorian soldiers said. The tunnel will collapse. Kim coughed. Blood came from his mouth. Leave me, he said. I'm slowing you down. Shut up, Sunho said. No one gets left behind. Sunho, I said shut up. They kept running. The tunnel shook. A massive piece of ceiling fell right in front of them, blocking the path. Sunho kicked at it, trying to clear a way through. "There is no time," Talvo said. He looked at the blocked path, at the collapsing tunnel, at his wounded friends. His calculations were running again. The numbers were bad, but numbers did not matter anymore. He understood that now. "Help me," Talvo said to the other Valorian soldiers. We pushed together. The Valorians looked at each other. Then they moved forward. Together with the humans, they pushed against the fallen rocks. It should not have worked. The rocks were too heavy. The time was too short, but they pushed anyway. And somehow, impossibly, the rocks moved. The path was clear. They ran. Behind them, the tunnel collapsed completely. Dust and debris exploded outward, chasing them like a hungry animal. Then they were outside. The gray surface of Belra 7 stretched before them. The extraction ship was waiting, its engines already burning. "Move, move, move." The pilot was screaming over the radio. They reached the ship with seconds to spare. The ramp closed behind them as the ship lifted off. Through the windows, they could see the colony caving in on itself, disappearing into the ground like it had never existed. It was over. Talvo sat on the floor of the ship, breathing hard. Around him, the squad was doing the same. They were bloody, broken, exhausted. But they were alive. All of them. Yuna was working on Kim's wounds with desperate speed. "I need proper medical equipment," she said. "He's lost too much blood." "We'll reach Horizon's Edge in 15 minutes, the pilot said. "Medical team is standing by." Kim's eyes were closed. His breathing was shallow. But he was still breathing. Sunho sat next to Talov's. The big human was crying. Tears ran down his dirty face, cutting clean lines through the blood and dust. "Is this normal?" Talvos asked. Sunho laughed weakly. "Yeah, it's normal. It means we're still human. I am not human. You are today." Sunho put his arm around Talvos. It was heavy and warm. "You came back for them. You pushed those rocks with us. You stayed when you could have run. That's human enough for me." Talvos did not know what to say, so he said nothing. He just sat there, feeling the weight of Sunho's arm, listening to the ship's engines, watching Yuna fight to keep Kim alive. 3 weeks later, Talvos walked into the medical bay of Horizon's Edge. The room was quiet. Machines beeped softly. Through the windows, stars burned in the endless darkness. Kim Do-yeon was sitting up in bed. He looked thin and tired, but his eyes were bright. When he saw Talvos, he smiled. "Look who finally came to visit," Kim said. "I came every day," Talvos said. "You were unconscious." "I know. Yuna told me." Kim gestured to a chair beside the bed. "Sit," Talvos said. For a moment, neither of them spoke. They just looked at each other, sharing a silence that did not need to be filled. "So," Kim said finally, "did fear find you?" Talvos thought about the question. He thought about standing in that dark tunnel, watching Kim and Yuna disappear into the darkness. He thought about the weight in his chest, the shaking in his hands, the scattered thoughts that made no logical sense. "Yes," he said. "Fear found me. How did it feel?" "Terrible. Like dying. But also like living. More than I had ever lived before." Kim nodded. "That's fear. It shows you what matters. What you're willing to fight for. What you're willing to lose yourself for. But I also found something else." "What?" "Courage." Talvos said the word carefully, like he was testing its shape. "I believe humans call it courage. The ability to act despite fear. To choose what is right over what is safe." "Where did you find it?" "In you. In all of you. When you ran into darkness for Yuna. When Sunho carried you on his back. When Jie kept shooting, even after she was wounded. You were all afraid. I could see it. But you acted anyway." Kim was quiet for a long moment. Then He reached out and took Telvos' hand. It was a human gesture, intimate, strange, but Telvos did not pull away. "You found it in yourself too," Kim said. "You jumped into that hole after us. Nobody ordered you to. Nobody calculated it. You just did it. I did not understand why at the time. Do you understand now?" Telvos looked at their joined hands. He thought about everything he had learned, about fear and courage, about logic and emotion, about what it meant to have something worth losing. "Yes," he said, "I understand now. Fear is the weight you carry when you have something worth protecting. And courage is choosing to carry that weight anyway, even when it hurts, even when the numbers say you should run." Kim squeezed his hand. "Welcome to being human, friend. I am still Valorian. I know. But now you're something more too." Telvos thought about that. Something more. Not human, but not just Valorian either. Something new. Something that understood both calculation and emotion. He thought about the Queen's words. She had called love and loyalty weaknesses, chains that held people back. She had been wrong. Love and loyalty were not chains. They were bridges. They connected people across the empty spaces between them. They made one person's strength into many people's strength. They turned individuals into families. The Hollow had consumed 40 civilizations because those civilizations had fought alone. Each person protecting only themselves, calculating only their own survival. Humans did not fight that way. They fought together. They fought for each other. And that made them stronger than any hive mind could understand. Telvos looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, more Hollow were waiting. More battles would come. More friends would be made and lost. But he was not afraid. Not anymore. Or rather, he was afraid. But he had learned what to do with that fear. He would carry it. He would use it. He would let it remind him what mattered. And when the time came, he would fight. Not because the numbers told him to, but because his friends needed him. That was what humans had taught him. That was what fear had shown him. And that was enough.